Since I like going back and listening to some of my old thoughts, I'm currently in the process of re-uploading some of my older videos in order to make them more compliant with YouTube's policies on reused content. But since I didn't want to do a lot of editing, here is the audio from my original review for this series. Who would have thought that a cartoon about a Hollywood horse could be such a hit show while also filling me with existential dread? Yes, BoJack Horseman has finally finished, and with it marks the end of an era. For me, BoJack started off as a funny satire about the Hollywood lifestyle, and while it has retained that DNA over the years, it has evolved to become something more than just that. It's a very dramatic character study that looks to examine trauma, psychological damage, depression, addiction, self-destructive behavior, and more. And it wasn't afraid to tackle hot-button issues like racism, sexism, sexuality, sexual harassment, abortion, alcoholism, gun control, the media portrayal of these topics, political correctness, among other heavy topics. For an animated show that can be seen as a surreal and lighthearted comedy with anthropomorphized animals, BoJack Horseman was a very realistic portrayal of the human experience, most notably in its depiction of its characters. The characters in this show are all very flawed and deeply damaged individuals. It may not seem as though anything is outwardly wrong with them, but their problems are clearly internalized. No matter where they go or how happy they actually become, their trauma still follows them. So even though half of these characters are animals, they are all very human. And I think that's why this show clicked for most people. They can connect to these characters and possibly even see themselves in the cracks of these people. Someone I once knew told me that I remind her of Mr. Peanut Butter, and that same person, coincidentally enough, reminds me a whole hell of a lot of Diane, which is ironic given the nature of our relationship and how those two characters eventually ended up. But I'm sure most fans can see a bit of themselves in BoJack himself. Which is not to say that every fan is as psychologically scarred as BoJack is. His situation is unique to only himself. But I'm sure that many people can relate to the idea of wanting to move on from their past mistakes in order to self-improve, only to find themselves in a vicious cycle of self-destruction. BoJack can't help but to continually hurt himself and the people around him. It's in his nature. Think of the story of the scorpion and the frog. The scorpion needs the frog to live, but he can't help but sting the frog anyway because that's all the scorpion knows. So BoJack does some serious damage to himself along with his closest loved ones and friends. And in season 6, all of his past sins finally catch up to him. If you're new to the show, BoJack Horseman was once the star of a hit 90s TV sitcom called Horsin' Around. I'm sure his creation was inspired by the likes of John Stamos on Full House. But in the current day, with the height of his career behind him, BoJack struggles not only to find work, but with understanding his place in the world as well. Horsin' Around was such an important show for BoJack that he struggles to have an identity without it. And that sense of uselessness, coupled with his fame, brings BoJack to a dangerous tug of war between his narcissism and his self-loathing. So he buries his pain in alcohol, drugs, sex, and other self-destructive behaviors. Various seasons of the show find BoJack attempting to accomplish something in his post-Horsin' Around career. Whether that's writing a memoir, starring in a new TV procedural, starring in a prestigious film that could potentially earn him an Academy Award, or entering into rehab. And season 6 finds our titular character, freshly out of rehab, attempting to live a quiet and normal life as a college professor. And while that idea seems nice, we all know far too well that not all nice things last. I guess I should state now that I don't love every season of this show. Some seasons are more heavier and topical, while others are more lighthearted and comical. For example, I don't think I laughed once throughout the entirety of season 4, and that was the hardest season for me to watch due to how realistic it felt. Whether you enjoy the more dramatic elements in the series or the more humorous elements will entirely depend on your own taste.
I do like the dramatic side of the show, but I personally enjoy BoJack the best when it's poking fun at Hollywood lifestyles. And that's why I was afraid to watch the series finale. I didn't know if series creator Raphael Bob Waxberg was going to take a more comical approach and end the series on an optimistic note, or if he would take a more serious approach and end the series on a dark, bleak, and pessimistic note. Ultimately, I am satisfied with the conclusion that we got. It was bittersweet more than anything else, which felt like the right ending for BoJack. To me at least, because apparently a lot of fans are upset with the series finale. I haven't read into why, but I can only assume two things. People thought BoJack got treated too harshly, or people thought that BoJack got let off the hook too easily. And maybe the truth involves a little bit of both perspectives. For those who think BoJack should have had a harsher punishment, the best I can say is, at least he is being punished. He is serving his penance, physically and spiritually. Waxberg did not let BoJack off the hook. He has to pay for his sins and his crimes, even if it happens in a way that we didn't really expect. So whether or not he should have received harsher treatment is just arguing over semantics. What he did was wrong and despicable, yes, but what he deserved is debatable, and doesn't change the fact that he ultimately was punished. For those who think that BoJack got treated unfairly, come on, it would have been too easy to let BoJack off the hook entirely. The penultimate episode of the series teases a darker ending for our titular character, and while I would have been satisfied with the outcome of that ending as well, and I'm sure many people would have preferred the finale to end on this episode, it would have ultimately been a cop-out that prevents BoJack from facing the truth about his own behavior. And from what I can tell over the past few years, Waxberg isn't about giving the audience an easy answer. We all yearn for catharsis, to know that our actions and our lives have meaning, but rarely in life do we actually feel such validation. Movies and TV shows act as an escape from that harsh reality. We can connect to fictional characters, empathize with them, and project ourselves into them. So when they finally reach catharsis at the end of their journey, we can feel that validation with them. But life doesn't work that way. It doesn't have endings or new beginnings. It just keeps on going, whether we want it to or not. And since BoJack Horseman is trying to mimic the harsh realities of life, it makes sense that BoJack himself doesn't get a happy ending, or an overly dark one. It doesn't even feel like he gets an ending at all. He's left in this limbo. His life will go on, we just don't know how it will turn out. Will he relapse and become an alcoholic again? Will he finally learn from his mistakes and become a new man? Will he ever hurt his friends again? Will he connect with those who have distanced themselves from him? Can he make a comeback in his career? Does it even matter? Will public perception of him ever be positive again? We will never know. And such is the nature of life. I often joke with my own friends that life sucks and then you die. But Diane is right. Sometimes life sucks and then you keep on living. And that might sound like a bleak statement at first, but I don't think it is. We are all going through life together, facing our own hardships. And if we're still here, that means we still have time to improve the sucky hand that life has dealt us. Yes, this is all the philosophy that I've learned from a stupid show about a horseman. Every season, someone drops a line that really resonates with me, and that was no different with this final season. Diane tells BoJack that you can be grateful for someone who helped you become the person you are today, even if that person isn't in your life anymore. And as someone who is constantly yearning to do right by those who aren't even in my life anymore, despite the fact that I know I'll never get the chance to do that for certain people, I really felt where Diane was coming from. But season 6 isn't a perfect season. Despite how much I did enjoy it, I can't deny that it did feel a bit rushed. As the final season ever, you can just tell that certain characters and plot lines just had to get cut in order to reach the conclusion. My biggest issue with the season is the fact that Hollyhock just disappears without a clear explanation. I get that BoJack might not deserve an explanation, but the audience definitely deserves one. I think this line of thinking is representative of BoJack Horseman as a whole. It may not be a perfect show, but it really resonates with people for trying to create fully realized characters that deal with real problems, even though they exist in an otherwise silly and surreal environment. I used to think the show was fun for having clever Hollywood puns like featuring a character called Quentin Tarantula. But for all of the reasons I listed above, I think it will ultimately be remembered as one of the best animated adult shows ever created. I'm going to miss BoJack Horseman. I'm going to miss Diane Nguyen and Princess Carolyn and Mr. Peanut Butter and Todd Chavez and Hollyhock Mannheim Guerrero Robinson Zilberschlag Sung Fonzarelli McQuack. I'm going to miss Hollywoo and all of the characters that speak in alliteration for no reason. A part of me wishes that this show could have gone on for 10 more seasons. But a thing isn't beautiful because it lasts. It felt good to have BoJack Horseman, even if it did fill me with some existential dread. It was nice while it lasted, so I would likely give BoJack Horseman 4.25 out of 5 stars. Thanks for watching.